Greetings and thank you for joining me. I genuinely appreciate you taking a few moments to watch this video. If you choose to subscribe to the channel, it would honestly mean a lot to me. With that said, let's get started. Many people grow up believing that love is about holding on, no matter how you're treated in return. I used to think that way too. At least I did, until one night when the woman I loved most deliberately crossed the one boundary I had pleaded with her not to. She thought I'd follow her, beg her to stay, and ask for another chance. What she didn't see coming was what I did instead. My name is Vance, and this story began over 2 years ago at a casual get-together organized by a close friend of mine. He was known for his chill gatherings. Nothing fancy, just good vibes, a few dozen people, and fun games to keep things lively. After a tough week at work, I was looking forward to the break. My friend had a way of creating an atmosphere where strangers could feel like old friends. That evening, he broke the group into smaller teams for some light competition. Not long after I arrived, I noticed her. She had a friendly presence and carried herself with confidence, though I didn't think much of it at first. When our names were called to be on the same team, she smiled kindly, extended her hand, and introduced herself. Right from that moment, we clicked. I'm not the type to instantly feel at ease with new people. I usually take a while to warm up. And based on past experiences, I half expected her to be like others I'd met at similar events, a little standoffish or self-focused. But Regina wasn't like that. Talking to her felt surprisingly familiar, like reconnecting with someone I hadn't seen in years. She was clever, quick to laugh, and just as into the party games as I was. We even bonded over a random shared knowledge of cheesy 90s movies during a trivia round. When it came to charades, she somehow always knew exactly what I was trying to act out, no matter how terrible my performance. By the time the party began to wind down around 11, most guests were making their way out. But Regina and I were still locked in conversation. I didn't want that connection to end, so I suggested we exchange numbers. Something about that night stuck with me. As I walked back to my car, I already hoped our paths would cross again soon. The very next day, we started texting, and it was as though the conversation had never stopped. We swapped stories, shared laughs about work, and passed along recommendations for everything from coffee spots to movies we thought the other would like. Eventually, our messages turned into late-night phone calls. Regina had a way of turning even the most mundane details into something engaging. And when she asked how my day had gone, I could tell she wasn't just being polite, she really wanted to know. A few weeks later, we arranged to meet up for coffee on a quiet Saturday. By the time that coffee date ended, I was already looking forward to our next outing. Within a couple of months, we'd slipped into a rhythm, texting daily, talking almost every night, and spending time together at least twice a week. Some nights were proper dates. Others were spent just relaxing on the couch or hanging out with mutual friends. About 3 months in, I found myself needing some answers. To me, what we had felt like more than just friendship. But I didn't want to misread the situation. So during one of our usual evening calls, I asked her directly if she was seeing anyone else and what she was hoping for in the long term. Regina's answer was exactly what I'd hoped for. She wasn't dating anyone else, and she'd been wondering the same thing about me. That conversation led to our most intentional outing yet, one where we laid everything out and agreed to move forward as a couple. I still remember the flutter of nerves mixed with excitement. Being with Regina felt different. It wasn't just romantic interest. It felt like we were building toward something real. The early phase of our relationship was everything you'd expect from two people genuinely enjoying each other. We decided not to move in together just yet, but we were quickly becoming a constant in each other's routines. Regina was thoughtful, affectionate, and seemed fully invested in what we were creating. Our days followed a comfortable pattern. Weeknight dinners, weekend adventures, slowly introducing each other to our inner circles. But as time passed, I began to notice something unsettling. Regina had a large group of close male friends, many of whom she stayed in frequent contact with. Her phone buzzed constantly, even during the moments we shared. These were friends from college, colleagues, people from her hobbies or social groups. At first, I tried to brush it off. I told myself that opposite-sex friendships can be healthy and harmless. After all, I'd been that guy before, just a friend, secretly hoping for more. But as weeks turned to months, the pattern didn't shift. Regina made no effort to create space or set boundaries. She'd text these friends late into the night, even while we were watching a movie together. I had hoped that as our relationship deepened, she would naturally adjust those dynamics, not because I asked, but out of consideration for our growing commitment. I wasn't demanding she cut anyone off, only that she acknowledge the difference between being single and being in a relationship. That adjustment never came. Despite how far we'd come, her priorities didn't seem to change. She'd still take their calls during our time together. She'd respond to their messages mid-conversation with me. I started to second-guess myself. Was I overreacting? Was I slipping into the role of a jealous partner? That wasn't who I wanted to be. I tried to give her the benefit of the doubt, but deep down, something didn't feel right. One Saturday evening, after a full day spent together, I knew I couldn't keep quiet any longer. We'd just finished dinner and were relaxing on the couch when I told her there was something I needed to share. I didn't come at it with accusations. I started by opening up about a piece of my past she didn't know. Years earlier, I'd been in a serious relationship with someone I loved deeply. We'd been together for about 8 months. She also had a male friend she insisted was just that, nothing more. Every time I brought up how it made me feel, she told me I was being unreasonable, even controlling. So I let it go. I chose to trust her, even when she'd spend entire evenings texting him while I sat next to her. I convinced myself it was innocent. But one day, I saw a message that erased all doubt, graphic, unmistakable. They'd clearly crossed a line and had been involved behind my back for at least 2 months. When I confronted her, she never admitted to anything. Instead, she flipped the script, telling me I was overthinking it, making things up. That betrayal cut deeper than I knew at the time. It wasn't just the cheating. It was the manipulation, the way she made me question my instincts, my sanity. She didn't just break my trust. She made me feel like I couldn't even trust myself. After I finished explaining myself, I told her that my past experiences had left me particularly sensitive when it came to friendships with the opposite sex, something that might seem overblown to someone who hadn't lived through what I had. I made it clear that I wasn't asking her to completely cut off her male friends. Rather, I needed certain boundaries to be respected in order for me to feel safe and grounded in our relationship. Specifically, I requested that she not have male friends over to her place, avoid behavior that could be misread as flirtation, and maintain a kind of emotional space that reflected her commitment to me. I prepared myself for resistance. I thought she'd accuse me of trying to dictate her social life, the way my ex once had claimed, or that she'd tell me I was letting past scars contaminate our present. But Regina didn't push back. She sat with what I'd said, quiet but thoughtful. She admitted she hadn't really considered how her friendships might look from my side. Hearing my perspective helped her realize that, even if her intentions were harmless, some of her actions could be seen as disrespectful to what we were building. She agreed to the boundaries I had outlined. She told me our relationship mattered deeply to her and that she wanted me to feel secure with her. To Regina, the limits I proposed weren't burdensome. They were understandable measures for someone she hoped to build a future with. The relief that washed over me in that moment was immense, not just because she said yes, but because she responded with such maturity and care. She didn't get angry. She didn't minimize my feelings. She listened, took it in, and prioritized us. In the weeks and months that followed, she honored our agreement. The constant texts from other men all but disappeared. That change rewired the way I experienced our relationship. The quiet, persistent fear that I was always competing for her attention faded. I no longer felt like there was always a window left slightly ajar for someone else. For the first time, I was able to fully invest in the relationship without the shadow of old fears. Our connection deepened. We began planning for the future, talking about moving in together, setting shared goals, even discussing the possibility of marriage. Regina spent the holidays with my family, and I got to know hers. We took trips, coordinated on big purchases, and handled responsibilities as a team. By the time we reached our second anniversary, I knew with certainty that I wanted to spend my life with her. We'd faced difficulties, like any couple, but we always approached them side by side. Most of our conflicts were minor and quickly resolved. But the argument that unraveled everything happened on a perfectly normal Thursday night. It wasn't dramatic or explosive, just one of those small misfires that happen when two people are slightly off rhythm. I didn't think it was serious. I assumed we'd talk it out and move on. The only complicating factor was timing. That weekend, we were set to attend a birthday party for a mutual friend, something we had RSVP'd to weeks in advance. Even though there was still a bit of tension between us, we agreed to go together rather than cancel or arrive separately. It was supposed to be a relaxed gathering, about 30 people from our broader social circle. On any other night, it might have been fun. But as soon as we walked in, I could sense that Regina hadn't let go of the earlier disagreement. Her demeanor toward me was chilly and distant. I understood she was still upset, and I wasn't expecting affection she didn't feel. But what unfolded went well beyond just giving me the cold shoulder. About an hour into the party, a man she'd known for years arrived. Someone who had always been a bit too familiar with her, even after he knew she was in a relationship. He was the kind of person I had been referring to when we first discussed boundaries. Since that conversation, he'd kept his distance, and I appreciated Regina's role in establishing that. But the moment he stepped into the room, everything changed. The wall Regina had been holding up around me dropped immediately. Her mood brightened. Her energy shifted. The warmth and enthusiasm that had been missing all evening suddenly returned, and it wasn't directed at me. It was impossible to ignore. The way she leaned into their conversation, the open and eager body language, the attention she lavished on him, it was all unmistakable. While I stood by, receiving little more than indifference, he was met with her full presence. I tried to stay engaged with others around me, but I kept catching glimpses of her laugh, her smile, the way she leaned in as he spoke. I kept reminding myself that people sometimes seek comfort in familiar faces when they're upset, and maybe that's all this was. It wasn't ideal, and it certainly edged close to the boundaries we had set, but I wanted to give her the benefit of the doubt. As long as it remained just a conversation, I told myself I could live with it. Then the music changed and people started dancing. He reached for her hand. She responded with a bright, inviting smile, one she hadn't shown me all night, and took it. They moved to the dance floor together. At first it was harmless, light movement, the kind of dancing no one would question. But as the rhythm shifted, so did the atmosphere between them. Regina moved closer. Her body language became more deliberate, more charged. What had begun as casual quickly morphed into something that felt unmistakably flirtatious. When the tempo slowed, his hands settled on her waist, and a sharp clarity struck me. This wasn't a mistake or a misunderstanding. This was the precise line I had drawn months ago, the one thing I had asked her not to cross. And she was crossing it deliberately, in front of everyone, with full awareness. Worse, she wasn't being passive. She was matching his energy. She stepped in closer, placed her hands on his shoulders, looked up at him with an affection that belonged to something intimate and exclusive. I stood still, absorbing what I was witnessing. The person I had envisioned a life with intentionally disregarding the one boundary that mattered most. It wasn't a careless moment. She wasn't intoxicated. She wasn't confused. It was intentional. She was using the deepest vulnerability I had shared with her as a weapon, striking back in a way she knew would cut the deepest. I didn't confront her. I didn't interrupt. I didn't cause a scene. I picked up my jacket, turned around, and walked out. The ride home was silent. I didn't turn on the radio. I didn't reach out to anyone. I didn't replay the night or try to explain it to myself. I just drove, feeling an unusual sense of calm, because deep down, I knew exactly what needed to come next. I didn't wait up. I didn't wonder when she'd realize I was gone. I didn't check my phone, I just went to bed. Around 2 in the morning, I heard a knock. It was steady, not panicked. I didn't have to look through the peephole. I knew it was her. I lay there for a while, listening to her knock, then call my name, asking me to open the door and talk. Eventually, I got up, walked to the entrance, and without unlocking it, told her, quietly and without anger, that I wasn't going to let her in. I asked her to go home. She asked me what was happening, what she'd done to deserve this treatment, and why I couldn't just talk to her like a mature person. I ignored each question. I only kept repeating that it was time for her to leave and go back to her place. For nearly 30 more minutes she stood outside, pleading with me to open the door. Eventually, I heard her footsteps recede down the hallway. That night, Regina didn't try to reach out. The following day passed with the same silence. I started wondering if she was angry about how I'd handled the situation, if she thought I'd acted immaturely or overreacted. But then it hit me. I honestly didn't care what conclusions she came to. 2 days later, she finally texted. It was brief, casual, bordering on indifferent. So, are you done being mad so we can talk? I read it over and over, struck by her assumption. To her, I was just pouting. She believed this was a temporary mood swing she could simply wait out. I replied instantly, "There's nothing left to discuss. We're done." Her response came within seconds. "What? Vance, come on. Don't be ridiculous. I know you're upset, but we can work through this." I sent one last message. "I'm not upset. I'm done. It's over." She told me she had only danced with that guy to get under my skin after our earlier fight, that it didn't mean anything, and that she was sorry if I'd misinterpreted it. My final reply was simple. "I understand you perfectly, and none of it matters anymore." Then I blocked her number. In the days that followed, Regina tried every way she could to get in touch. She used different numbers, sent messages from multiple email accounts, and even showed up at my job during my lunch break, hoping to catch me in the parking lot. When that failed, she turned to mutual friends, asking them to speak to me on her behalf. I thanked each of them for checking in, but told them the relationship was over and my decision was final. Most tried to convince me to reconsider, insisting that everyone slips up now and then. I told them that while mistakes happen, some reveal something fundamental about a person, and once you see that, it's impossible to unsee. This was one of those moments. Every one of those conversations followed the same script. They'd say I was making too much of it, that I was walking away from something good without a real reason. I never explained the details or why I felt so strongly. I just repeated that Regina and I were finished, that I valued their concern, but my mind was made up. After a couple of weeks, the messages and calls finally stopped. I figured Regina had either come to terms with my decision or our friends had grown tired of being dragged into a situation they didn't truly understand. What surprised me most was how peaceful the months afterward turned out to be. I thought I might be plagued by doubt, regret, or sorrow over ending a relationship that had lasted more than 2 years. But instead, I felt unburdened, like I'd released something heavy I hadn't realized I was carrying. I kept thinking back to that night at the party, trying to understand why it had been the final straw. It wasn't just that she crossed a boundary I had asked her not to. It went deeper than that. When someone confides in you, shares the pain they carry, tells you what hurts and what they need, they're giving you something fragile and trusting you to protect it. That night, Regina turned that vulnerability into a weapon. She knew exactly what would wound me most, and she chose to go there anyway. Some people might argue that I gave up too soon, that I should have tried harder to repair things. But fighting for a relationship only makes sense if the other person has proven they're worth the effort. That night, Regina proved the opposite. Love doesn't target your deepest wounds. A healthy relationship shouldn't feel like a constant debate over basic respect. The right partner doesn't reach for your trauma when they're angry. During the months after the breakup, I learned something valuable about myself. I would rather walk away from years of shared history than stay in something that steadily erodes my self-worth. The right person won't require lengthy explanations for why certain things hurt. They won't test your boundaries just to see how much you'll tolerate, and they definitely won't use your past against you in a moment of conflict. Sometimes the bravest choice is refusing to fight for someone who wouldn't hesitate to hurt you. And sometimes the best healing comes from walking away without looking back. That's where this story ends. Feel free to leave your thoughts below. Thank you for watching. If this story resonated with you, explore more content on the channel. Until next time, take care.